Let's get started here. So again, my name is JB Fowler, Chief Product Officer for Domotz. I'm here with Seth Rubenstein, our Business Development and Sales Manager.
Greetings. It's a pleasure to be here, and we're looking forward to getting into this with you guys. Please feel free to shoot over questions. We want to keep this interactive.
So our standard introduction slide, and we've talked about this before, but I think it's important when you guys see a webinar again, in case some of you are new to this, really describing what is Domotz. You know, Domotz in my mind really is a SaaS-based or software as a service company. We're a tool for helping you run your integration company more efficiently. The things that we want to do is we not only provide you with great customer service, but we want you to feel like you can provide your customers with awesome service as well. What we want to be able to do is provide a tool that helps you avoid problems, understand when problems exist on the networks that you're monitoring or that you're installing for your customers. And then we also want to help provide you with better information and be more aware of what's going on in the system. I mean, Seth, do you want to add anything to that?
I guess all I would really want to make sure that we emphasize is that and we'll get into this, but as great as recurring revenue is, we want everyone to be getting recurring revenue. I'm a big believer in it. I've implemented it before, but it's really, in this case, it's about cost savings.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So one of the things, and on our next slide that we didn't mention, this particular webinar is actually sponsored by one of our partners, which is Luxul. And one of the reasons that we wanted to do this is Luxul has now made available, which I'm pretty excited about personally. I mean, our agent is now available in the Epic series routers from Luxul. So we thought it was a good time to talk to them and show what we're doing. In my mind, Seth, this really boils back down to how can we help the integration company save cost? I mean, They have to install routers anyway. Why not take a router that actually has the Domotz agent on it and install that in there? So,
but it also means that it's kind of like a Trojan horse for you. If you've already got these routers getting implemented or deployed, and you decide at any point in time you want to activate the Domotz agent, you can do so. So some folks prefer to have one box that has all the capabilities in it. On the other hand, some folks still like to have a standalone box.
Yes, absolutely. And it works really well in that situation, which we're making it available for you, and so it's Luxul for that matter. So we like that. When I look at a standard, Luxul system, you're typically going to see, or any sort of networking-based system, you're going to see wireless access points, you're going to see routers, managed switches. I'm fairly certain that most of the folks out there are going to have managed switches at a minimum that they have to deal with. But having a wireless system for all the different IoT devices that are out there, different tablets that work for unified communication systems, whatever it may be, they're all managed by a network and the network infrastructure. So we're happy to be partnering with Luxul on this.
Well, and the reality is, and to our last webinar, which was Don't Sell Domotz, you don't see Domotz here, but it is here, right?
That's right. That's a good point.
And the whole idea is, you're not selling remote monitoring. You're not selling a Domotz box. If you are, I think a mistake has been made. That's our opinion. There are people who do that for sure. But in this case, you're selling a system, not a component. And ultimately, it's an experience, right? What do people want? They want to be able to get online when convenient to access the web.
Yeah, we talked before, and I think it's appropriate to bring this up on the last webinar where we talked about, this is about you and selling your brand and making sure that you, regardless of what products you're using, are helping you to be more efficient. And frankly, I think Luxul has a very similar philosophy when it comes to making sure that their customers are successful. But that being said, we're here to talk about, remote monitoring and management and what it does for you from a recurring revenue perspective. So let's dig into that. So, from my perspective, as we start to look at the math of what's involved with truck rolls and the cost to you as an integrator, I mean, I think these are real, true costs that you guys have to be dealing with. we bring this right up front to say, hey, what are the tangible costs associated with doing a truck roll? And this will kind of lead into why remote monitoring and management is so important. But there's no doubt that time and the labor costs associated with time, dealing with fuel, dealing with insurance on the trucks, dealing with vehicle depreciation and how you as a business manage that, those are all factors that relate to a truck roll.
And I think there's probably plenty of folks out there who enjoy contributing to the economy by rolling trucks. I mean, we've got Rolling Truck Incorporated right here
on the screen.
And so they're probably not a Domotz candidate, to be honest.
Clearly he's in like Northern California or something with those trees. I don't know where he is, but you know, we put down that it's $50 to $100 more for a single incident. I would be hard pressed to find that any of our listeners here right now would say that it's even less than $100.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
No, I mean, when we talk to integrators, not only is the average cost significantly more when they factor in everything, honestly, you know, the sunk cost. But then, I mean, there's so many factors, like where do you live? You know, that's just, somebody's going to look at that and go, yeah, good luck in Los Angeles or Vancouver,
yeah,
or San Francisco, or, you know, New York. It's just, you can't get around quick enough. Everything costs more money. So even if you're in the middle of nowhere,
yeah,
you're still looking at distance and insurance and all those factors.
It's funny you say that, because we are in San Francisco right now doing this webinar, but we went and spoke to a couple integrators that are in the heart of San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that even though that most of their business is within a 5 to 10 mile radius, yeah, they even stated that doing truck rolls for them is a minimum $250, if not $400 proposition, given parking expenses, locations, challenges with moving with inside the city. Now, I understand that San Francisco is a little bit more unique, and I would say similar to probably New York City, but the reality is that truck rolls are very expensive.
Well, and not only that, but I mean, what are you doing? What could you have been doing if you didn't have to go and send your most expensive technician or yourself out to go address the needs of an extremely important customer? You could be earning business with somebody new. So,
and that's absolutely the opportunity cost, right? That's why we captured that there, and I completely understand and agree with that. So, you know, Seth, we mentioned this before. It's not a matter of if, but when it breaks. I think it's important to reiterate that, because, again, you guys, I mean, this is essentially stating the fact that you're going to do a truck roll. Right? You guys know that already. But something has to get rebooted. Something breaks, whether it's via a warranty issue or whatever it may be. But you're going to be doing a truck roll. So,
and people are accustomed to that. It's not like you have to make a stretch to say, hey, look at your own, you know, mobile device, and you got to do, you know, firmware updates to it. You have to reboot it once in a while when an app doesn't play well with other apps, and to respond after you've been told or, you know, informed by your customer is backwards and unnecessary.
That's right. And this is the reason, even on our last webinar, we were talking about, you know, prepare your customer for this, yeah, right? Provide them with an understanding that I'm gonna say poo happens, right? And you'll be there talking to them. It's a matter of whether you're doing it remotely or whether you're doing it via truck roll, right? So I think this is a well understood slide. We wanted to bring it up, yep, again, so we touch on it. So Seth, here's where we start doing the math. And you know, you were talking to me about how we can really start to calculate this. And I think the way you started looking at this, personally, I think really makes sense. Do you want to kind of go over your thought process, sure, with the cost of a truck roll here?
So if we take what we hear as the average, right, $150 for one truck roll, and let's just say that we had one per year, right? So, you know, one per year over 3 years, which frankly I think is a very safe figure to use with respect to the lifespan of hardware. Not all pieces, of course, but things that have to go and be replaced. Certainly you're replacing batteries and remotes, yeah, far more often, but let's just say it's only one truck roll in a year times 3, right? And then the average integrator of ours and MSP is serving at least 50 sites. So they're looking at a cost at that conservative figure, 150 at $22,000. And if we take that down by 50 bucks, it's still 15 grand.
Yeah, I think the question here, I think, is important to see too. I mean, any integrator that's putting in a more advanced system, probably anything with automation of some sort, even if it's a universal remote control or an RTI system, something that's simple, their customers are very often going to want something modified, changed. And when you start talking about a more advanced automation system, they're guaranteed to come out more than just once. So, sure. I mean, you have to start multiplying these numbers by the number of truck rolls per year.
Yeah.
Right.
The point is, you can do math all different kinds of ways. You and/or your accountant should have already been like looking at this and figuring what are, looking back over the last 3 years, what was it costing you? What is the average cost of your projects? Yeah. And how does that all compare? Something that we get asked a lot is, hey, what can I charge? It's like, well, what are you spending? Is really, you're not going at these folks and begging them for something that isn't a reasonable ask. These are really valuable services you offer to sell and maintain systems. And again, it goes back to your point earlier about having the experience delivered in a standardized way and in a way that will give people the value that you're capable of. I mean, people undervalue the fact that we are experts in this field.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked before, Seth, about, when we've gone out and spoke to different integrators about, hey, tell me the factors that make up your costs. And because we were thinking about how can we build a calculator for this to say, hey, here, look, these are the actual numbers. Here it is. The fact of the matter is that everyone we talk to has a different way of calculating their costs, but a very common theme is that they typically come back saying, hey, we know our costs. And this is talking to the accountants and the finance guys, right? So Chris that we met last night, right?
Chris and Dan.
They absolutely were saying, hey, this is minimum 250 given where we are here in San Francisco.
And it's hundreds.
Yeah.
Especially, at the outset, they keep going back out to make sure to test, make sure things are set up right. There's so many different ways. Domotz. I hear that so often. I'm starting to say it. We say Domotz, but people often ask how is it pronounced. But they when you first release a job over to a customer, there's all this time in which they have to do some troubleshooting to make sure everything's set up properly. And then maybe once things get settled in, then they don't have to visit so often or have to worry about so many different problems. But it fluctuates over that 3-year span. It doesn't happen as uniformly as we may have laid it out.
Absolutely. It's important here now. I mean, the reason we've got cost of standard monitoring is if we look, it wouldn't be fair just to say that the truck rolls cost money. When we're talking about remote monitoring management, we recognize the fact that, hey, RMM also costs money. So what is that? So if we start to make it a similar scenario where we say, hey, if you're going to apply RMM to every single one of those 50 sites that we just talked about, so we charge for the boxes, roughly $180 is what we see on an average price that people are paying from distribution. Over a 3-year period of monitoring, for us, we're doing $36 or $3 a month or $36. So you multiply all that out, it's roughly $14,400 for the same equivalent scenario, but where you're doing it RMM. I think the point of this math is to say that as long as you eliminate one truck roll, it pays for itself already. I mean, you're already, in this case, $600 ahead at the lowest assumed cost of $100. So it becomes, I mean, why are we going through all this? Because it's an education to make sure you guys have looked at this. You're seeing the math the way we are, and you can start thinking about how should I be changing my business model to take advantage of these tools that are out there to help me run my business more efficiently.
That's right.
I mean, it's the same reason that everybody uses some sort of email program now, as opposed to sending mail through the postal system, right? It's really low cost to send a stamped envelope, but all the intangibles, all the time, right? It just there are new tools out there to help you be more efficient. Take advantage of those things.
That's right. And it really leads into the next one, which is, you know, what do we, I mean, we know that this is about profit. We absolutely want people to be profitable and predictably profitable. Like I said before, I've implemented a recurring revenue model. I know that it's a bit of a mental hurdle to get over. Like, will people actually pay for this? I better make darn well sure it's got value. But I know for sure that people want to have that assurance that what they're getting is going to be covered, that they don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to have the service that and maintenance of that system that they want to rely on from the experts.
So profitability, and this slide is about profitability. We say $15 per month. Please note that we've extracted all the costs from this. So we're assuming at this point you are charging your customers an appropriate amount for monitoring and managing their systems remotely. And just like we talked about in the last slide, and I think we have a couple other slides coming up that chat about this, but that you're probably adding other features or services to what you do for your customer to justifies, you know, let's say in this case, $15 a month of profitability. Quite frankly, I hope you're making more profit on that. And again, we talked about this before, but depending on where you are, you have to figure out what your customer's willing to pay to get that. But the beautiful thing about the math here is that from, even if on the low end you assume $15 a month per customer, over 50 customers, I mean, you're really starting to talk about big numbers here. I mean, $9,000 a year of extra profitability, not to mention all those other intangibles. And please remember the fact that this is profitability only. It's not accounting for the number of truck rolls that are in there, right? This is just making a small assumption. So really, the profits could actually go much higher.
That's right. And what is your company worth? Well, the first thing that you're going to be asked is, well, how many customers do you have? Yeah. And okay, that's fine that you sold them something once, but what is the opportunity to go back to these people and get more money, right? And to be able to talk about the fact that you have this predictable stream that's coming in, let alone the fact that you can go all these positive engagements, all these proactive interactions lead to, hey, I know you're really into, you know, having family over and watching this, or I know that in your business, you know, you have a lot of conference calls because you got offices all over the place. You know, what are ways that we can help you improve that? Because technology is constantly improving. So turning these into upsell opportunities, we haven't even begun to factor that stuff in.
Well, one thing, Seth, I mean, the discussion we're having here is about kind of the here and now, right? 5 years from now, assuming you're at 50 customers, you're making this kind of money. I think it's important to recognize, and a lot of people are more in the here and now and driving their business for, hey, what does it mean today? And we're more on, okay, I have this much going out this month and I have to bring in this much. One of the benefits of recurring revenue that I don't think people realize is that in the future, when they plan to sell their business, or they plan to offload it to their kids or whomever it is, having this stream of revenue that comes in to help offset costs during the downtime is actually extremely beneficial. Also, from a valuation of a company, this is an important aspect of what it means to have a successful business.
Living month to month,
yeah,
sucks.
Yeah.
Meeting payroll. I heard one person tell me it was like standing in the middle of a train track watching that big headlamp come straight at you always.
Yes, right. Yeah, we were at the security show last week at ISC West. And at that show, it was very interesting because the security channel, I would say, had figured this out, right? They had a tool for monitoring a home or whatever it may be, and they're able to gather recurring revenue. It's amazing to look at a lot of the companies that were there that are still flourishing because of those models that have been put in place from 20, 30 years ago.
Yep.
So be considering that. The changing environment. So when we were thinking about this, we were trying to figure out, hey, how do we describe to you why this whole recurring aspects are important? And in our last webinar, we talked a little bit about this too, but I wanted to reiterate that having a touch point for your customers on a continuous basis is very important, and you should be charging for that, right? You shouldn't be afraid to charge for that. You know, we talk about IoT devices, the Internet of Things. It's this nebulous term that everybody uses, but the reality is that, and I'm speaking more from a networking point of view, the more and more devices that are out there that are smart, that do things for you, that benefit you in some way, whether it's through a service or a function inside your home or inside your business, your commercial establishment, those things are getting connected to the cloud. The challenge with that is as things get connected to the cloud, people are going to need you guys as integrator or the integration channel to come out and help connect those things out there. So be aware of the fact that you have touch points with your customers constantly. And it goes back to letting them know that they're going to be coming back to you. So why not be more upfront and charge for that stuff, right? And show how this recurring service for you is that you're there as a partner for life with them.
And you're their advisor. They expect our channel, our industry, to be the ones being real with them about what to expect next. And we all know, going from one trade event to the next, if we were to walk into, you know, a big manufacturer's booth, from, you know, we went to it last year, we go to it this year, if we saw all the same technology in that booth the second year, we would wonder to ourselves, what's wrong with those people? They're dying. They're going to go out of business. And so it's like a big giant tidal wave that's coming. We can either surf it or just get crushed.
Yes, that's true. It's very true. We put this last bullet down here about the life expectancy of technology. This again is to give you the confidence, and I know we're stating some facts that you already have, but this is letting you, or giving you points to talk to your customers about, to say, hey, this technology that's going to be installed, they will inevitably need firmware upgrades. They'll inevitably need hardware upgrades, where you need to put in new components. Setting that expectation with your customers up front helps justify why these types of programs are in place, these recurring payment programs. By the way, Seth, I didn't mention, we call it RMR, recurring monthly revenue. We have been to many, many different customers where they don't do it on a monthly basis, right? What they're really doing is more annual, or even programs. I've even seen programs where they do it over a 3 or 5 year period, and they kind of roll it into the upfront costs. Right? That's an important thing to note in my mind, because we didn't really chat about that. But
I heard somebody recently say, you know, if a device has a 3 year life expectancy, in many respects, it's like, you know, a gun to the head. You know, I mean, it's frightening, but this is what's going to happen in 3 years. And being realistic, you know, we did just get a comment or question here regarding the struggles of selling to an existing customer base. And you know, we were with some folks last night, and the figures they gave us, we said, well, what about your existing base? You know, and they said, oh no, that's all we're talking about is the existing base. Of course, this is going in all the new projects, but the idea of having a Domotz box, or, you know, whatever your mechanism is for getting that agent on their network, the sooner you can do it, the better, because you're beginning to accumulate intel, right? So even if the customer hasn't started paying you, again, the cost is so ridiculously low that to be able to go, okay, we got an issue at this site, we're going to resolve it, we'll tell the customer about it later. Maybe the first year is covered under warranty or their, you know, service agreement, but after that, we'll start to charge them per incident. Even if that's your model, you still have this device that's been like leaving a technician on site recording information for you. so that when you go back to look, you can recognize a pattern. Well, geez, this happens every Wednesday at 3 a.m. What else happens every Wednesday at 3 a.m.? You know, the AC unit kicks on. We didn't install it, but it's causing havoc. Yeah. So not having the intel, there's no bad time to get a device deployed and activated, especially at the price point.
Yes. Well, let's move on here. So differentiating yourself from the competition. This is something that we talked about from a monitoring management point of view. We touched on it in the last one, but I think it's important to recognize this as a way in which you can start charging for this, because you do differentiate yourself. You are different. You're doing the things we talked about before, whether you're adding concierge services, whether you're adding warranty work where you come out and replace it. I think that this is all stuff that you do. We point out that if you're a security installer, there's no doubt that you are already monitoring their physical security system, right? IP cameras and things like that. But you had to touch that network anyway. So why don't you just go in and start monitoring that for them and show how you can add services to it? It's another way in which you can charge an extra $10, $15, $20 a month, whatever it may be for your customer base. You know, if you're an IT department and you are inside an enterprise or you're inside a commercial establishment, this is really about being proactive in my mind. Obviously you're not going to charge your boss. Well, you might if you're lucky enough. But within the company, what you're doing is trying to be proactive towards your customers. Your customers, whether it's the engineers or the accountants or the finance people inside your enterprise, you're making sure that you are, I like to use the term Johnny on the spot, right? Whenever a problem occurs, and being more proactive. There's real value in that. And quite frankly, the cost of not being proactive is kind of a staggering number when you start to think about the different types of firms that you guys work in.
You can either, find out about issues before your customer does, or you'll never find out about it, but your competition will, right? Because they're getting the call that says this guy doesn't even know what's going on with my system, and I'm tired of that.
Yes, yeah. I put down this bullet here about the technology. This technology, new technologies that you guys are installing, are really no longer white goods of the past. I mean, I remember my parents, the dishwasher, the washing machine and dryer, they had those things for 30 years and they still worked. Technology today, with all the boards, with things like surges that happen in the electrical system, things just don't last as long as they used to. Making sure that your customers recognize that is yet another reason why you go out and saying, hey, this recurring charge, right, this service charge that I do on a regular or continuous basis, it is because of this issue, right? Because things break and I want to be there for you.
And even though you can say to either way you win, you can say, look, you're probably going to want all of the new features that are coming out in a model, 2-3 years from now. But even if you were more interested in getting the longest amount of life out of the devices you do have, those devices still need to be maintained, right? And firmware updates need to happen in order for that life expectancy to be extended.
Yeah, exactly right. And Seth, you touched on this last bullet here already about installing one of these in every system. This in my mind we talked about proactivity, right? Being proactive with your customers, solving problems beforehand. But this is where we're saying, hey, install the Domotz box, even if they haven't signed up for a service plan, because you're going to be doing a truck roll anyway. And then show them, right? Be more active and show them how you solve that problem remotely so that they'd be willing to pay for the service. We were talking to, actually the same customer we were talking to yesterday, right? Actually said, yeah, we're getting to the point where we just install this because we know we're doing this truck roll. But then we show them, hey, here's what we could have done. They're still charging them for the truck roll, the service. And I think they were doing like $500 for this large service, but they show how for this more minimal fee, they can be more proactive and help more often. I thought that was very ingenious, really.
Well, and we used this last time when we were talking about don't sell Domotz, and the it's no big secret, but the Magnolia folks were selling the service agreements and only putting Domotz in on projects when they were selling the agreement, and it didn't take them long to figure out that they were losing money on all the sites where they simply didn't have it yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Oh, Violet, right?
Yeah.
We should always talk about Violet. And we had this information there before. I go back to Violet is really meant to be a tool for you guys as integrators, especially, it's no secret when you look at Violet, it's a little bit more parental control focused and more residential focused. And I stated before that we're looking at what we're doing on the commercial side of things, because I, as a product manager, believe it's really important to go into these other these markets with a tool that's more viable in that space. So we are working on that. But giving you guys a tool to help your customers be more proactive is extremely valuable. It's an easy example. It's part of the reason that Violet is more parental control centric, to go into a home and say, hey, Mr. Customer, right, this service that's there, you also get this, right? It's just a more tangible asset to give them, to say, this is why you're paying for it. Every integrator that we spoke to over the last week, even back at ISC West, right, with the video security, when we were showing them these capabilities, so many of them went back to, God, my customers are asking for parental controls. Why, if I have this available, this makes it obvious as to why they would pay an extra, $20 a month or $10 a month for this.
And our avid users know this about us already. Our responsiveness to their feedback is something that they particularly appreciate about us. Mm-hmm. And we've taken some feedback lately about even supplying some better sort of step-by-step hand-holding resources, like how to walk your customer through getting the most use out of Violet. And we can do that. We can do that in a way that becomes a tool for you. So by all means, I'll take this as an opportunity to solicit that ongoing input and questions, and hey, what about this resource? And if we have it, then we're simply sharing it with you. We don't have it, now we know something that would be of benefit.
Yes. So in the interest of time, right, we're about 35 minutes into this. So, this just likens back to our standard, let's call it our modus operandi for why Domotz should be leveraged in all of your sites. I mean, we're really about your brand. Seth, every time we go out and talk to customers, I know you're talking about their brand and making sure that they are running more efficient. Here I am talking about operational efficiency and how you can improve your business operations. But I think these 4 bullets really sum up what we try to get across in those conversations. It's about improving your customer service, being more proactive, helping you guys look really good in front of your customers. It's about helping you save money. We talked in pretty good detail, I feel, for what we can do on a webinar about the cost of a truck roll and how we can save you money by implementing remote monitoring and management. Saving time is an interesting one. We talked about the time labor costs of travel, even within a city. But if you can if you can solve a problem, if you can quote unquote power cycle a device, whether it's through a PoE switch or a PDU, and not do a truck roll, which I know 90% of the times that you guys go out, power cycling fixes the problem. That is a huge savings to you. And then really the point of this webinar is to say that, you guys have the ability to make money off of these services that you add. Don't be afraid to ask for it. You need to think about how you can ask for it, right? You know your customers better than we do, but making sure that you talk about service, you talk about the concierge-like capabilities, you talk about Violet and the different things that it can do there. I think that really helps.
Yeah, imagine if the problem that you have is telling a customer at the end of a year all the things that you did for them, rather than have to deal with the reverse, which is have that uncomfortable conversation in a break-fix model, right? So it's the benefit of or the luxury of the problem of having to say, these are all the problems we solved. In fact, Domotz produces reports to help you do that, which is kind of nice. You know, you can send those to your client. Some people prefer not to do that, but it's certainly one way to go back and say, hey, this is why I think you might be interested in a renewal. You know, we had people tell us last night, our friends Chris and Dan, you know, that you know, they really appreciate, like, their comment was, wow, you guys, you're really here to help us. You know,
they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we help you, you sell more of this, or you put more of this in. It's an ecosystem here. It's a win-win. Customer wins, the dealer installer or managed service provider wins, the manufacturers who we partnership with, and of course, you know, we're in the equation too. But this is like a high tide raising all boats, and we just want to be a part of that. We love being in this category.
It is a fun category. I have to admit. I mean, anybody who's in this space, even whether you're in the commercial side of it, dealing with networks, I mean, this is fun stuff. So we got to give a shout out to Luxul, of course, right? We really appreciate the fact that that we have sponsors for this. I mean, there are partners that we work very closely with, but there's no doubt that in conversations that I've had with Mike Grubb and Jeff Curtis and Kevin Hansen at Luxul, that they really understand and get this channel. And there's a lot that they're doing for it. I've seen a lot of really good investments in how to help our integrators not only save money, but also to think about how they can be more profitable. That's right. Which is why I think it was so apropos to talk about this particular subject with them sponsoring us. So I really like that.
We do want to encourage. We realize that, you know, every time we do one of these informational webinars, it may not cover everything that you have questions about. You can always email questions, whether it's technical and you're a user and you want to send it to support@domotz.com. You can always copy jb@domotz.com. You can copy me, Seth, at sales. I mean, we want to be engaged. So it can be here during this time we have together. Feel free to shoot your questions over. We're getting a couple. We'll talk about those, but it doesn't have to be right here, right now. If you want to use this webinar as a recording to share with somebody else, to generate some thoughts and questions internally, you know, I was even thinking about maybe putting together a little quick spreadsheet that just let people plug in their own figures, you know, like how many per year and how much per visit, and just do your own math. I mean, why not make
to that point, Seth, whenever we're going out and talking to guys, we're always asking them, hey, what is it that makes up a truck roll in your mind? How
it's not to be confused with like a sushi roll of some kind, right? Is it? Anyway, sorry. We had fantastic food last night. You just got to give a shout out to Sushi Puzzle in San Francisco. Just amazing, like fantastic. You come to San Francisco, you have to go to Sushi Puzzle. And if you really want to know more about it, just send me a message. I'll send you the address and the name of the chef. Fantastic. The sake was amazing also. Anyway, so we do have some questions, JB. Somebody who's interested in knowing a little bit more about the reports. I know I mentioned that very briefly. What kind of things can we show to a customer? And by the way, you know, we want the integrator service provider's logo on that report. We don't want it to be a Domotz report. So if you could talk a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, a couple of things that as part of the tools that Domotz provides to you guys is one is which reporting. We have a couple different ways we format that. First of all, you can provide a PDF to your customers, again, with your logo on it. It prints automatically or generates automatically, but it shows things like network history. You know, what has been the speeds. There's a nice graph in there to show that the ISP or the internet service provider, what their speeds have been over the last 30 days. There's information about which devices have gone online and offline. So that's more the standard report. But furthermore, and I actually don't think a lot of people recognize this, there's yet another report that's much more detailed that comes out in a more comma separated format or Excel-like format, that you can start to see exactly when devices, what their MAC addresses were, IP addresses, when they went online, offline, what was the time that they were offline. It's a much more detailed report that you can get as well. Again, these are tools to allow you to help troubleshoot the system. And the other thing, when we talk about service and what it means for what you offer to your customer, we try to make it easy for you, is you're showing your customer that, hey, this is what I did for you. You know, the tools that I use got you this level of service. That's what that is about.
You know, of course, we are very interested in seeing people deploy out to end customer sites. But another huge aspect of what we do on a regular basis is engage with other vendors. And even if it was just for data enrichment, there's so much information that we're able to collect that it cannot be taken for granted. The fact that when you do a scan, you're not just getting back an unintelligible list of MAC addresses that you have no idea what those devices are. The whole relationship with our sister company, Fing, is a huge asset in terms of quick and easy device identification. But we don't stop there. We engage with companies like D-Tools.
Well, Seth, I realize it's at the end of the topic, but the reason we're in San Francisco is because we're at a conference called RSA. So anybody who's in the know about RSA understands that this is actually more of a cybersecurity type of conference. We're here engaging with vendors that are in this space. I mean, quite frankly, it gets back to how are we thinking about security on the network and what are we doing for you? And that's an important aspect here.
Absolutely. There were a couple other questions that have come in. One I'll answer real quick. It has to do with what's the difference, if any, between our agent, which is what we refer to as our little piece of software that can sit on a Synology, can sit on a router.
Yeah, the Luxul router.
Right, the Luxul routers,
black box.
Right, and a very popular model to go with. Is there any difference between, or what is the difference between our agent running independently on our own box or a box that happens to be branded with the Luxul logo? Some people still have our old boxes when we were selling them direct.
Functionality within the black boxes themselves are really similar across all the different black boxes. There are tools in place that the different manufacturers of those boxes can start to differentiate themselves, but that will come in time as we're working with them. Interestingly enough, one of the things about the agent, the Domotz agent running on the Epic series routers within Luxul, is that Luxul has enabled a few hooks that have to do with, and getting a little bit more network technology, that have to do with IP tables and being able to block MAC addresses. So when your customer is using Violet and they actually want to block a particular family member or block a device from accessing the network, when it's on the Luxul router, it actually truly does block it in a way that makes it much more resilient to errors and more prone. It's actually getting in and configuring the IP tables. So that's one of the advantages of actually taking our software and putting it directly on boxes.
Right. A great point was made regarding ways that the box, the agent can be leveraged. There's manufacturer support, which is a better way to help the connection between, say, again, keeping with the Luxul theme, the Luxul's help desk,
yes,
and integrators, so that not only are you getting support on a very narrow but deep, line of products, but the benefit of seeing broadly across the entire network, not only for the integrator service provider, but then the vendor who might be able to identify based on experience, hey, we've noticed over time when this other product is on that same network, we can sometimes have these issues, right?
Yes. Yep.
So that kind of intel is incredibly useful. And there's a collaboration feature.
Yeah.
So any two Domotz users can be sharing temporarily visibility of a single network and able to assist one another in troubleshooting problems.
Great. So Seth, in the interest of time, I think we're at our 45-minute mark that we wanted to be. Let's ask one more question if you've got it there.
The one last thing I guess I'd like to make sure that we address for folks. We talked about making maybe a spreadsheet available. There's certainly a ton of resources already available in our knowledge base. I often send out a list of frequently asked questions and then links in that email embedded so that people can go directly to the responses or the answers to those questions. So if anyone is interested in seeing what we already have, just shoot me a message, Seth, S-E-T-H, at domotz.com. I'll respond. I'll shoot you a response that has a lot of resources in it. And if you still don't see what you're looking for, let us know. And that'll be a great way for us to be inspired to provide better resources.
That's great. That's a great point. So with that, let's say thanks. Let's sign off. If there's still some more questions coming in, no doubt, we're going to get to those. But in the interest of time, I think we need to sign off at this point. I really appreciate everybody listening in. We look forward to the next one that we do. It'll probably, given schedules and stuff, I'm thinking it's going to be in the June timeframe, just because we weren't able to, due to meetings, get one done here in May. But I'm excited with what we're doing, and I hope that this was helpful to you. Do you have any
Hey,
questions?
listen, yeah, I would just like to say, I mean, the next major event we have on our schedule is Infocom in Las Vegas. If you haven't been,
we're gonna be at Castle as well, right?
Oh, that's true. Yes, we're going to be at the Castle event in South Florida. And I guess what I'm getting at is that's Las Vegas, that's South Florida. We're going to go up to Chicago next month. If you think you might be interested in getting together to have a conversation, let me know, and we'd be happy to make sure that we put that on our calendar.
Thanks, Seth. Thanks everybody for attending. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.